Boom. Look at that pause at there. We were waiting for that video to end there. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Check It Out show. I do feel like we should have at least had a couple of sparklers each for this show after that nice little intro. Really looking forward to tonight's show. Every month we get more and more fantastic vendors come and join us, talk about what they're doing. And tonight is certainly not going to let down the side. We've got a really, really good mix. So looking forward to meeting everybody. We always kick off our show with a little bit of a what's been going on in Alan Mark world, things we've picked up on that's been happening in the sector. So I'm going to pass to you, Mark. What have you been up to the last week? What have you been
Well, do you know what? This time last week, and I think it was Tuesday last week, I had a fantastic week. I was really lucky because, as you know, I work part-time at NetSupport, but I also do my ICT evangelist.
Do you?
I do, yes.
Oh, good, yeah.
So I was working at the British School of Barcelona last week. Fantastic group of schools in Barcelona, as the name suggests. But not only did I have a great day last Tuesday for that, but when I finished my day waiting for my taxi to take me back to the hotel, so you were in Dubai at the Guess Awards, and I only went and won a Guess Award, Al.
No way.
Absolutely, yeah. So I've been doing this show, some of you might be aware of it, Learn Live UAE for 18 months or more now. Something that Ollie Lewis, who's senior leader at the British International School of Abu Dhabi, he and I started it as a means of trying to bring UAE issues and conversations and sharing it with a local context for supporting in the pandemic with the various lockdowns and all the rest of it. And we won an award for impact and innovation during the pandemic. So yeah, absolutely buzzing about that. So yeah, had a really good week last week, and it's just like that every time, though, isn't it? Every time we get together, we got new things to talk about, new innovations to talk about, new things happening at NetSupport as well. So that was my week last week. How are things doing with you, Mr.
Well, I think the first thing I would say is thoroughly well deserved to you and Ollie, because it's a cracking show, and I know over the last year plus you've been sharing some great resources and ideas and had a fantastic lineup of speakers and guests. So credit to you both and well done on that.
Thank you.
My week has been, I've done a bit of travelling as well, which is I think lots of us have been out and about. Yes, we were across at the Guess Awards, or I sometimes say Jess Award, depending on the hour of the day, but I think it really is supposed to be the Guess event across in Dubai. And it was quite a nice trip home from home, actually, because there's lots of educators that we work with and that I know personally that are based out there, lots of expats, and a really strong British contingent from BISA, EdTech vendors that were there supporting and sharing some technology that's been already supporting schools extensively in the region and certainly been helping a lot during the pandemic. So a really, really nice event. And it was kind of probably the first international event where we've had a chance to kind of just reconnect and get away from, like tonight, big screen. Although we're not on the screen, we're in the same room for the first time for this show, which is lovely. But I think it does show the shoots. There's still lots of challenges and pressures, but it's nice to actually be able to get back out, meet up with people, chew the fat. There's a little bit of just well-being and just sharing the pressures and stresses people have had. But it's also nice to see and hear about the different innovation that has been going on. From adversity always comes those opportunities. And we saw, and I spoke to lots of people who've really had some exciting ways they've developed the way that they've been delivering teaching and learning, or broader well-being, online safety, and a whole gamut of things. So yeah, a really positive event. And as I said, really nice to see the UK contingent flying the flag over there with loads of great solutions as well. So a really nice week, and it's even nicer to kind of come back to good old Blighty and connect with loads of other people who've been innovating and supporting in the space in recent months and years.
Before we jump on to the next bit, though, Al, and I'm sort of moving forward to our third guest here, because he sort of let a bit of a cat out the bag whilst from the tweet I saw, at least, whilst he was out in the Middle East. Speaking about things like BISA, have you got some news about BISA at all, perhaps?
It's kind of news. Yes, it is, and it's something that I don't even know if it's officially, but yes, Matt is on the show, and Matt did share. Matt's done a sterling job chairing the BISA EdTech special interest group for a number of years. And there's been a change. Matt's stepping down, and I'm really, really chuffed to say that I'm going to be joining the fold. So tough act to follow, but it's a really exciting time and a great opportunities for all of us working in the EdTech space. So I hope I can continue to fly the flag for all of our BISA members and help support and coordinate what we're doing there. So yes, exciting times, and we might dip into that a little bit when Matt joins us shortly. But we have got a jam-packed agenda tonight, and I can see already in the green room And when I say green room, they're obviously all sitting, quaffing champagne, waiting with their riders to get called onto stage. So I think we should kick off with our first guests, because we have a habit of overrunning, and we don't want to start off behind schedule mark if we can avoid it.
No, absolutely. So welcome. Our very first guest this evening is the one and only Leslie Berrington from Hattie and Friends Storybooks. Welcome, Leslie.
Hello, it's lovely to be here.
Thank you for joining us. And you came in nice and early, so you got to see a bit behind the scenes.
Very interesting.
Let's just keep that to ourselves, Leslie.
Yeah.
Let's not spoil the show.
Yeah, what happens off air stays off air, if that's okay. Thanks, Leslie.
I would just like to say, though, it's lovely to hear about last week for you. You had a really amazing time, and you've been on your travels and awards and everything. I visited a school in Scunthorpe, which was fantastic. And I'm just so delighted to be out again visiting schools, because I had 18 months where I was stuck at Hattie HQ. And so since September, I've been visiting schools again. And I think I visited 9 this term. So, yeah, going to Scunthorpe is fantastic for me.
Thing is, I say that the trip over to Barcelona, it sounds exotic. I mean, there was no downtime or anything, but like you say, it was just lovely. I started, I did a bunch of things while I was there, but I started their student digital leader scheme in the school. I had 60 students, pupils ranging from year 3 up to year 13, and that opportunity to be in a school talking about, because I'm a teacher by trade, so it's just lovely to be able to get back into schools and engage with young people. I missed it so much. So thank you for highlighting that, Leslie, because I say it's something that I've missed massively as well.
Yeah.
And it's such a privilege to get the opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And, I love my question and answer session at the end of my session, because I get some fantastic questions, and I've really missed that. And so one of my favourites is "How old are you?" which comes up quite a lot. So I've had that one this term. But my most favourite ever was "Do you ever sleep?" which I just thought, well, I obviously seem like a very busy person, or I look very rough at the moment. So, but children are just great, aren't they?
I've got a bit of bad news for you, because we've got our 3 questions for you now, Leslie, and 2 of them have already gone. So we're going to have to improvise. So our first question, in a slightly more polite tone than the ones you've been experiencing recently, for everybody listening, and this is the chance to kind of showcase the different solutions, is tell us a little bit about your solution. Well, it's not a solution, but your product that you're offering.
Okay, well, hopefully it is a solution, because Hattie and Friends is a series of inclusive storybooks, and they feature positive images of disability throughout. And the reason why Hattie and Friends came about was because I used to own 3-day nurseries and 2 kids clubs in Lincoln, and we had an Ofsted inspection at one of my nurseries, and the inspector said we needed to reflect diversity more in our resources. So when I went to look for books featuring disability, I just couldn't find anything I liked. They were all kind of quite dated, or they were explaining the disability or highlighting it, and that's not what I wanted. So I decided to create my own, and then that's Hattie and Friends.
Well, you've kind of jumped straight through and answered question 2, really, because question 2 is what makes your solution different from others. But I mean, you kind of highlighted a few things there. Are there any other features of the product that make you sort of really stand out from other solutions that sort of sit within your space?
Well, I think that they are totally unique, my books, because the disability is incidental. So, as I say, it's not highlighted at all. If you read the story, it's not in the text. And most people seem to like that, because it is true inclusion. Hopefully, children like the characters for who they are. They're cute, appealing characters, familiar themes of going for days out with family and friends. And it means that we're just teaching acceptance, respect, and understanding for the differences that we all have. So I think that's pretty unique.
Absolutely. And I'm going to throw a quick extra question in, if I can, just because I think it'll help for listeners. What would be your target audience your books are aimed towards?
So the target audience is preschool, but when I visit schools, I talk to children. I go right from nursery, where I'll just read a story, right up to year 6, and so I just adapt the talk for each age group. I've seen some schools recently where there were really tiny rural schools with only sort of 40 students, and I've spoken in more detail to the older ones about creating characters and the writing process and publishing and working with the illustrator and things like that, which I really enjoy. Actually, I enjoy working with the older ones, because my background's with younger children. I'm a nursery nurse. I'm an NEB qualified. So it's quite nice working with the older ones and going into a bit more detail. But yeah, I think older children can read the stories alone, sort of up to age 8. But the younger ones, it's for reading to them or discussing in class, really.
Perfect. And we always like to ask about how it kind of supports or serves the audience. Now, you've kind of obviously touched on those, but how would you best present in terms of, are you hoping that in many ways children won't necessarily notice? It's almost by osmosis that they pick up
Yeah,
on
it is. Absolutely. And I think the hope for me is that these stories, not just mine, but this type of inclusion in storybooks becomes the norm in everybody's bookshelf at home and every book on every shelf in every bookstore, because you just don't see enough of these books. And I think it's because there's a lack of diversity in mainstream publishing. And it's only down to sort of individual people like me who have published their own books, who see a need for them, that then go ahead and do it. But I don't really know how it's going to change. We need to just see more publishers who will take up and embrace inclusion, because I would hope that it becomes the norm, because disability is part of everyday life, isn't it? And
it.
when I was writing A Day at the Seaside, it features Lucy, who's blind, and she uses a cane. And when I was explaining to my daughter about it, she was only about 5 at the time, and we went out and she saw a lady in the street using a cane, and she said to me, "Oh, that lady's just like Lucy, isn't she, mummy?" And that was it. She'd obviously learnt that, and it wasn't a big deal, but she understood it. And also at the end of my um, talk in schools, as I say, I have questions and answers. I often don't even talk about the disability or the inclusion, and sometimes I'll just say to maybe the year 2s, "Can you notice any difference in my characters at all?" And they'll look and they'll say things like, "Oh, Hattie's got a white t-shirt and Nisha's got a pink t-shirt," and we go through everything. It takes forever, and then I finally say, "Well, I'm going to tell you," and I explain about disability, and you can see that they haven't noticed, but that's fine, because they've just accepted the characters and they've enjoyed the story. And I have the most lovely comments of, "I loved your story," and all this kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully it's just appealing to them. And I do try and get the point across that they're not special books for special education, they're for all children.
No, that's truly lovely, Leslie, and the fact that the children highlight on the character rather than the disability, like you say,
Mm.
is such a lovely touch. I feel like we could talk far, far more about this, but unfortunately we're out of time. Before we disappear and say goodbye, well, not you, us, you, but could you share where can we find more about the books and where to buy them and all these things, please?
So I've got a website, which is hattieandfriends.co.uk. Or I'm very active on Twitter, which is at Hattie's Friends. So you can get in touch with me via the website or through Twitter.
Brilliant stuff. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to join us this evening, and lovely to hear firsthand about the journey and what you're trying to achieve with the books. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thanks, Leslie.
Cheers.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Leslie. Bye.
A lovely
So
starter
nice.
for 10.
Yeah, no,
That's
that's
really
just absolutely lovely. So next up on the show, we have someone who's probably getting quite envious of the microphones we're using, given some conversations I've had with him previously. I can see his smile in the green room. Please welcome to the Check It Out show someone who's no stranger to conversations with myself and Al Kingsley, and none other than the EduFuturist himself, Dan Fitzpatrick. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Good evening, gentlemen. It's great to be with you. How are you doing?
We're doing very well. And already, Mark, I think you've put your foot in it, because we've been out. This little flimsy thing here, and look, Dan's got the proper pro gear on.
Oh, it's good. That's impressive. Mark was telling me about these fancy new microphones you've got. They sound quality. They really do. Mark, I just want to say congratulations on the Guess Award. I was listening in there. It's an amazing achievement. Yeah.
Yeah,
nice
say
work,
Ollie and I are absolutely buzzing. Thank you for that. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Like yourself with the EduFuturists, and I won't steal your thunder with what you can explain about what you do, but I know we come from similar starting points about wanting to share voices and help people and those sort of things. So, that's really kind of you to say, and thank you very much. Thank you.
So we're going to have to tell everybody, because we already know, and we've all had many an appearance chatting with yourself and the team on EduFuturists and supporting your activities. But for somebody who's been in a cave for the last few years and not come across EduFuturists, Dan, could you give us a summary of what you're all about?
Yeah, we'll do. That's very kind of you to say that. And we kind of there's three of us. There's myself, there's Stephen Hope and Ben Whitaker, and we kind of started probably about 4 years ago now. Myself and Ben were secondary school teachers at a school in Accrington, up in the north of England, and we it started off as EdTech, and I know kind of you guys are all about the EdTech, and we still are, but I'll explain how we've evolved over the last few years. We decided to start talking about our passion. I was quite a new teacher. In fact, I trained at that school, then was an NQT. Ben was on the leadership team there, and we just started talking together about kind of different ways. How can we move things online? How can we improve our practice? And we started looking at things like Google Classroom. That was still fairly new back then in terms of the uptake on it. And then we decided, well, why don't we talk to some people around the world who are actually using these tools in innovative ways? And I guess you know yourself, if you want to talk to somebody who's quite well known on the global platform in this area, sometimes just send them an email saying, "Oh, it'd be great to chat." Sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. But if you say, "Do you fancy coming on a podcast and talking about it?" a lot of the time they want to jump on and talk about it with you. So we found it was a great way to talk to some of the most innovative people out there in the world of EdTech and get them on and just chat to them. And we still do kind of think of that at the moment. So we still think of it as our Thursday night CPD session. So we'll all jump on a call and it's strange because we're not too bothered about who else is watching or listening in. We're just soaking it in. So we tend to get people on who we want to learn from, who we want to chat to, people who we want to connect with and develop that learning. And part of the reason why we've had you two on various occasions as well. And then a couple of years ago, Stephen Hope, who was heading up independent learning at Leeds City College, joined us on that journey because it happened in a personal way. We were working together on other things, and we decided, well, actually, the rapport's good. We love talking. We're on the same wavelength here with a lot of things. So Steve joined us, and it's kind of after a while of talking about EdTech, we kind of started venturing in kind of the future of education. What's education going to look like? And that's still very much influenced by EdTech, I guess, and kind of the possibilities out there. I've just realised you haven't asked me any of your questions, and we've probably got about a minute left. Do you want me just to keep talking, or shall I?
Shall we give you a steer? I think
go on, because I'll just ramble on all evening. Go on.
No, I think it's lovely to hear, and I think it's the main bits we want to try and get across. So the things we wanted to unpick for people to listen is, what you guys are about, what makes you different. So obviously, it's not just podcasts for you folks. There's other activities you do through the year. So really, just share a flavour, and then obviously we'll hopefully squeeze in at the end about how people can get involved, connect with you. Yeah.
So we talking to a lot of people, we decided, why don't we want to kind of foster the innovation, and we're all from the north of England, and we're all kind of focused around this area. So we're talking to some amazing people from around the world. So we had last year we had Josh Darn on, who started a school with Elon Musk at SpaceX. We've had Sam Gachuru from Kenya, who started his own school and being innovative there. Rob Hoban in the Netherlands, who's kind of created a new way of doing school. And so we said, well, how do we get those voices back to kind of for people on the ground within education who haven't got the time to hear from? So the podcast came from that, and then we thought, well, actually, how do we celebrate some of the amazing stuff that is happening here as well on the ground? So as you know, and we've been grateful to have NetSupport support on our EduFuturists Awards, which is kind of the main event in our calendar, where we get together virtually for the last couple of years, but we get together and we celebrate some of the amazing things that are happening out there in terms of innovation within our education system, and how people are pushing the boundaries and to learn from each other. Because I think, and I'll probably just end on this, I think we kind of base it all on the premise that education should evolve to meet the needs of our learners and in our world. And we kind of believe that probably isn't happening in every case. So how do we look out there and see some of that innovation? And I guess what makes us different, I think we try to take in the global picture. We try to say what somebody in a school in a village in the north of England can learn from the co-director of a school at SpaceX in California, and we try to put those people in front of just the average educator like myself.
Well, from my experience of knowing you and working with you and talking with you over the years, Dan, there's nothing average about yourself.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Don't hide your light under a bushel, as my northern friends tell me. If people want to find out more about EduFuturists and subscribe to the podcast and all this sort of thing, how do we go? Where do we go?
Yeah, well, the website where you can kind of see the breadth of all we do, because there's a lot of things I haven't mentioned as well, is edufuturists.com. We're on Twitter at edufuturists, as it says at the bottom there. Just on your podcast app, whatever podcast app you've got, if you just type in EduFuturists, you'll find us. You can subscribe. It's also on YouTube as well, youtube.com/edufuturists.
Brilliant. Keep flying the flag, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and appreciate you having me on. Have a good night.
No, you're very welcome, Dan. Lovely to see you, mate. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers.
Always nice to hear from them. I have to say, three of the nicest guys. We've done lots of different activities over the years, and then they just are a cracking team and always are the positive about what we can do with technology and education and bigger picture. So
yeah, no, massively so. And what's been lovely as well over recent times as well is sort of seeing how they're sort of progressing in their careers. And I think actually, there's a lot that people could learn from the example that Dan and Ben and Stephen actually sort of role model themselves, because as an educator, and I've sort of followed this to a certain extent myself, you've got to push yourself outside your comfort zone, don't you? And doing it in the way that Dan and Ben and Stephen do as the EduFuturists team is just great to see. And like you said, what great CPD to learn from others, and then do that in a way where you can actually not only learn for yourself, but have that opportunity to then share it to a much wider audience. So
absolutely.
Great stuff.
Just to be clear, I'm outside my comfort zone, because you'll notice I'm not wearing a tie this evening, and that's a rare occasion for me. So
I'm a bad influence again.
We're all making that effort. But I'm going to introduce our third guest this evening, Mark. Rapidly moving on. So our next guest is Matt, joining us from Learning Ladders.
Hello there.
Welcome, Matt.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Good to see you, Al. It feels like only days since I last stalked you around Dubai.
It's almost as if it actually was. For those listening, we obviously mentioned a little bit about our travels at the beginning of the show, but yeah, we did manage to kind of bump into each other and all the way through, and without realising it, coordinating flights home together as well. So I think we did a pretty good joined up approach from a visa perspective there, Matt.
It was slightly scary when the first person I saw going through passport control was yourself. So after an 8-hour flight, that was a welcome sight on arriving back in Heathrow. So
to be fair,
congratulations on the BISA role. It's for those of you who are not familiar with BISA, I think Al's been quite modest, but BISA represents pretty much all the UK education suppliers, and the EdTech group is voted by the members. So to be chair of that group, as Al is now, to take us forward at such an important time in education, I think is a really good accolade. So I look forward to passing on all the things that we never did under the shambolic previous leadership. Now we've got a pro in charge.
Oh, bless you. That's very kind of you to say, but I shall be picking your brains in equal measure, I'm sure, as part of our journey moving forward. So listen, we don't want to spend all the time talking about our travels. It's great to have you here. Tell everybody listening a bit about Learning Ladders, Matt.
Yeah, so Learning Ladders is been my passion for the last sort of 7 or 8 years. So I used to be a primary school teacher. It was a career change for me, went into teaching. And like all primary school teachers, I'm really only interested in things that make children's education more successful and better. And to some extent, make my life a little bit easier as a teacher. And as a teacher, what I noticed were a lot of the systems that I was kind of encouraged to use or forced to use was slightly artificially siloed. So you'd have a management information system, you'd have an assessment system, you'd have a parent system, you'd have an early years system, you'd have lots and lots of different systems that were all artificially siloed. And school's not like that. School's connected, it's integrated, it's messy, learning happens all over the place, challenges happen all over the place. And the systems weren't really dealing with that need that we had in the sort of schools that I was working in. The other thing, I suppose, from my point of view, in terms of what we try to address at Learning Ladders is when you look at what actually makes a difference to children's success in education, particularly in primary and early years, there are a number of things that we just historically haven't addressed very, very well, particularly getting the adults at home involved in learning. So it's a really tough thing for us teachers to admit. But actually in primary and early years, by far and away, the most important thing is to get the adults at home involved in the child's learning. So about 6 or 7 years ago, I started doing stuff in my classroom. I started sending home sort of short tutorials, explanations for parents, explaining how they could help their children at home. I then ended up at a conference and met some teachers from a school that had produced an assessment platform. This was all around the Life After Levels time. And we combined the two together. We decided to do something quite different. We decided to sort of flip on its head the traditional school approach to data. So back in the day, people would use school data for Ofsted. And there was almost a view that the more graphs you could produce, the thicker the folder that you could whack the Ofsted inspector in the head with when they came through the door, the better. That was very much the approach to school data, which, as we know, is nonsense. You know, school data can be incredibly powerful when done well for learning. But also, we're collecting all this data, and it's not working very hard for us if it's just then creating a graph which sits on a shelf from an inspection point of view. This is rich information which we should be then using in lots of other ways, which brings me back to my former point. If we're, as teachers, collating all this information about what children can and can't do on a moment-to-moment basis, why on earth are we keeping that to ourselves? Why are we not sharing that with the other adults in the child's world who can do something about it? So what we created at Learning Ladders was a tracking system that actually makes a difference to learning. It's much easier to use. It's easy to design. You can customize it. You can do a million different things with it. But it then works harder for you because it will then upskill the parents for you. So we have a remote learning platform. This was 6-7 years ago, long before remote learning platforms became much more popular in the pandemic, which shares with parents, this is exactly what your child is working on this week. You can share videos, portfolios, images, chat, the usual kind of stuff on there. But critically, it then upskills the parents with a short tutorial that we've created at Learning Ladders, explaining to the adults at home specifically how to help. It's no good just saying, as we discovered during pandemic, it's no good just saying to a child, go home and practice your split diagraphs, if the adult at home doesn't know what a split diagraph is and how to scaffold that learning. So if as a school, we can remotely upskill all our parents in our community on demand in any language for any subject, wouldn't that be an amazing thing? And that's what we do. So we have modules that do self-marking homework. We have tutorials. We have automated end-of-term reports. And essentially what it all is it's one hub system with lots of different modules, making that central data that schools collect work hard. The workload issue is there. I get it. It's completely valid. I don't think I've ever met a teacher anywhere that's scared of hard work. What they don't like is wasted time. So what we talk about is high value activities. Make sure if you're going to spend time on something, it works hard for you. So if you're entering data into a system, you want it to do lots of other things for you, not just create graphs. So yeah, there's no way I'm going to be able to stick to 5 minutes. Everyone in the office was laughing when I said to them that I had to do a 5-minute sort of pitch on this show tonight. But that essentially was probably the headline of what I'll talk about.
Good job, Matt. I think you've covered about your solution and many of the points about how you differentiate the joined up approach to how your solution kind of pulls all that information together and makes data useful. So I suppose the key ones is in your 15 seconds ish at the end, before we ask you where to find out more, what would you kind of say are the key things that that as a result of using Learning Ladders, teachers and schools will notice, but by the sounds of it, and parents too?
A more connected community. I mean, that's fundamentally it. Children are taking more control of their learning because there's a whole part of the system around that. They're more resilient, they're more flexible, parents are more involved. It's what you would design a school to be if you could. You know, it's what we want our schools to be. It's a proper community with the children's learning at its heart and everybody working hand in hand. End of story.
Fantastic. And I mean, that really resonates with me. You all know, like myself, you know, that things like John Hattie talks about, the importance of triangulation of sort of that wrapper of care between child, school and home, you know, and having all of that in one place and space. And, you know, with my parent hat on for a second, not split diagrams, but fronted adverbials, you know, helping my own children year 6 and 7, well, 5 and 6 and then 6 and 7 through the pandemic was hard enough. And I'm a teacher myself. So, you know,
And imagine doing that if English is not your first language, or if you didn't have a great school experience, or if you don't have much time. You need this on demand in a way that's really easy for you to access, that as a teacher is not confusing the children. I mean, when I was a teacher, the number of times I'll be teaching year 1, year 2 maths, and they come home on a Monday and dad's been trying to do long division with them because he thinks it's kind of cool. You know, it needs to be controlled by the teachers. So that's kind of where we sit.
Superb, Matt. Well, listen, time is up, unfortunately, but if people want to find out more about Learning Ladders, want to get a demo and sort of find out more.
So if you can put up with me for any longer, either myself or Stella will gladly do a demo. We do individual demos for individual schools because it's a tailored system. So learningladders.info or Twitter or LinkedIn or anything, then we'll be glad to spend some time with you and generally chat. EdTech. Al, I'm standing outside your house as I'm doing this. This is a fake background, so I look forward to seeing you later.
I look forward to it too.
You can tuck him in at bedtime.
Really good to see you. Thanks for coming on and sharing about Learning Ladders. And yeah, I'm sure we'll catch up soon, Matt.
Cheers, Matt. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Great solution. Well connected. Definitely worth checking out if you're listening on the show tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And that thing about making things actually work for you. There's so much that teachers have to do, which is sort of, you know, tick boxy and bureaucratic and so forth and so on. So how lovely to have a solution which really takes some of the things that teachers do have to do, but then really, you know, giving it a good old rocket to make it work for both parents, parents, teachers, and ultimately, you know, having that impact on children.
Yeah. Now, I've got a problem at the moment, Mark, which is I'm really struggling to gauge your mood. Have you got any suggestions?
Well, I don't know. Maybe some kind of solution.
Is there a way you could just give me a sense of what kind of mood you're in?
I could do, I don't know. I mean, like I could do fist to 5, perhaps.
Why don't we speak to somebody who might be able to give us some solutions and bring our next guest in?
No, absolutely. Welcome to the show, Wendy from My Mood Stars. Welcome, Wendy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you absolutely fine. Brilliantly, yes.
That's good. That's good. It's lovely to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're very, very welcome, Wendy. Now, I was sort of joking before about how we could sort of gauge my mood and all the rest of it. But obviously, this is something which is really, you know, very, very close to your heart, isn't it?
It is indeed. I was a childminder from 2000 to 2018, so for 18 years. And within that period, I had lots of different children coming through the doors. At first, we were under the umbrella of social services, and then Ofsted came in, and we childminders then became under the same umbrella as nursery schools and of schools. We had to become teachers and implement the early years framework. So not only implement it, but evidence all the areas of learning as well when Mrs. O came to call. So one of the areas of learning was personal, social and emotional development, which kind of like floored us all. We all knew about maths and numeracy and understanding the world and communication and language, but what was this personal, social and emotional development? We were clueless. So I had to look on the internet to see if I could find some resources, and they were all expensive. They were the happy dolls and the sad dolls. They're big puppets, and they were just too expensive, and it wasn't economically viable to go out and buy them. So I set about making my own mood stars, and which were little felt stars that depicted different moods and emotions, so that the children could talk about their emotions and learn to express them, identify them, and actually embrace them as well.
That sounds fantastic. Is it a technological solution, Wendy, or is it something which is actually physical you can hold in your hands?
They're here.
And as if by magic, it's like we planned this, Wendy, isn't it?
So here they are. They are 8 plush child hand-sized stars that are Velcro receptive. So the back is Velcro receptive. They just stick onto the scratchy side of Velcro. Children love them. They're relatable because they're non-gender, race or age specific. You only have the expressions on the stars' faces, so it doesn't confuse children. They are really doing well helping childminders and early years professionals implement and evidence PSED, especially now with the new areas of learning, which is self-regulation, managing self, and building relationships. So yeah, they're in a lot of schools at the moment, all using my mood stars to help children identify their emotions.
I think they look cracking. And one thing that Mark and we might always be talking about the value and benefit of EdTech within education, but we always finish the sentence with saying where appropriate. And sometimes things can be done just as effectively or more so without any technology at all. And I think that's a really good example for young children. So thank you for sharing that. So I suppose that it's a difficult one to kind of wrap our normal questions around, but what's the reaction or engagement from children who engage with them? Are they finding them really helpful? Do they find it's an opportunity to open up with their emotions?
What happens with the mood stars, Al, is that children talk to them like they would a favorite soft toy. So it's very powerful, because if mum or dad or care is listening, like my sister-in-law was the other day, overhearing my niece who was talking to Sad Star and saying, are you feeling sad because nobody came to you to play with you today when you were on the buddy chair? Now they have a buddy chair at school where when you sit on it, people come to play with you. Nobody came to play with her. So she was reflecting that onto Sad Star. And then my sister-in-law was able to pick up on it, speak to the school and sort it out.
Perfect. It's lovely. I think it's a great solution. And obviously for all of us, it's a perfect way to provide another mechanism for young children to express their emotions and engage.
And older children, especially those on the autism spectrum. They are actually age range from 9 months to 99 years.
Well, I think based on my earlier comment, I shall get a set for Mr. Anderson, so there'll be no confusion in future episodes. So listen, we've finished our 5-minute window. I'm sure we could go on talking about experiences on this one. But for anybody listening in who thinks this is exactly what we need for whether it's our childcare provision, our infant school, our primary school, whatever, where can they find out more, Wendy?
The information is on my website, which is www.mymoodsstars.co.uk, and also on Twitter @mymoodsstars.
Perfect.
Brilliant, fantastic. Thank you, Wendy. I'm a big fan. And like Al said, there are times when it's right to use technology and there are times when it's not right to, and having a solution such as my mood stars there for reflecting and open up those conversations, because it's very difficult for children, isn't it, to articulate things, sometimes to adults. So having something else to talk to, like the example you gave with your niece and your sister there before, just absolutely brilliant. So thank you for coming and sharing.
So much.
Really, really
lovely.
lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, Wendy.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye now.
Now, we normally have a little bit of a reflection moment now, Mr. Anderson, but shockingly, we're slightly over time, which is not like us at all.
Surely not.
So I'm going to just share one little news flash, which I was asked to do by one of the team, Tony Shepherd, which was to let people know about an event that's coming up in about 10 days' time, which is Cyber on a Shoestring, which is being organised, and it's on Tuesday, the 7th of December. And if you go to educationdatahub.org.uk, you can find out about that event, and they're organising it. And we're all very aware in terms of the pressure on schools and everyone else in terms of having those provisions. So any good, easy to access resources that can help deliver some of those cyber implementations and best practice on a shoestring, and that's the bit that catches everybody's eye, is definitely worth checking out. So Tony, consider it officially shared on the show. And given where we are on the clock, shall we jump to our next guest, Mr. Anderson?
Yes, absolutely. So next up on the show, we have Chris Jones from CJ Learning. Welcome to the show, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you very much, Mark and Al. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's very great to have you on the show. Given we're a little bit behind time already, with your forbearance, can we just jump straight into the first question? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course it is. Yes.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. So look, what is your solutions? What is CJ Learning? I'm guessing it's something to do with you, given your initials.
Yeah, CJ Learning started as a consultancy with me working with schools. I'm as several of your guests this evening, I'm a career teacher, had taught for 25 years. It's now 37 years involved in the education profession. I'd been involved in leadership in schools, and when I got to that point of leading school and at the start of the academy process, I got involved in sort of satellite work, working alongside other schools. And I guess one of the issues that I found very quickly is a lot of people started saying, we can't afford this stuff. And a lot of the people that were around me were saying that we haven't got enough money. We can't afford to step into some of these new things. We want to innovate, but we just don't know how it's going to work within the culture of the school that we have, the practices that are embedded. So a lot of, I mean, I guess it's a lot of background work that we were doing, but, you know, in the back room of, you know, how do we put schools together? So CJ Learning started moving around the country, and we started analysing schools in terms of the way that they are structured, primary and secondary, not just the secondary market. And then SRMAs started coming through with the work that Lord Agnew did within the department. And then we have this thing called Integrated Curriculum and Finance Planning that appeared on the agenda. As I'd been working with schools, we had been developing this, let's get a bit smarter about how we put things together. Let's start looking at how schools are constructed, how our groupings work. Or, you know, we're all quite used to going to the teacher toolkit on the EEF site and looking at some of the research that's there about class sizes and strategies of putting school together. So I was doing the work on a spreadsheet. But as a lot of people find this sort of data analytics, again, as somebody else commented this evening, it's just another thing that's in the background going on, and how useful it is and how accurate it was. We partnered up with a fairly significant data analyst group called Live Dataset, offered by Crescendo. And they worked with us to create a platform which we call Smart Curriculum. As I said a moment ago, this is this whole idea about being smart about the way we put schools together. So with the agenda of the SRMA and the ICFP work going on in the background about school efficiency, I began to sort of say to head teachers and trust leaders, you know, we're concentrating on this procurement process where we're looking at 20% of the finances. So we're buying our photocopiers and our contracts and, you know, all of the, you know, swimming pools, and can we afford the chemicals, and, you know, should we stop swimming because it's costing too much? And I started saying, well, actually, that's only 20% of the money. Why aren't we looking at the 80%? Why don't we start looking at how that, you know, the assumptions that we make about, you know, the way classes are put together and the way that we construct our schools, where schools, and particularly I, you know, in 2009, 2010, I was involved in an academy creation that was innovative, and the DFE were questioning us as to whether, you know, is this going to work? Can you financially make it work? So I'd got used to that idea of modeling. So what we do is we take that modeling technique around the country. And, you know, sadly, a lot of the schools we start with are in deficit budgets, and they want to return to a viable position. And I can say that every school we've worked with has come to that position where they see, you know, savings of 300, 400, 500 to £1,000 to £1 million. You know, I think our most significant change was a 1.3 million in the deficit that we were able to help them support and turn around, because practices that were going on in the school hadn't changed in years. You know, without naming, you know, 25 years of practice that had never been questioned. And the school we're still working with are, you know, every time I go in, the head says, I'm just so grateful. I just, you know, it's such a pleasure to see what we didn't understand, and now we're making the difference. But what we see, and the greatest pleasure, is that children are now getting the education they deserve. They're getting resources in front of them that they couldn't afford, that the school couldn't afford before. Teaching teams and school leadership teams are now understanding the finances and the way we put schools together in a way where they say, well, this is empowering. And I've got one trust leader that says, I've never had so many deputy heads coming and ask me to get involved in finance meetings, because they understand what they're doing now. And that's no criticism, but we just don't train school leaders in that process in the way we should be. So it's sorry, as other people have said, we can talk for hours on this, but, you know, that's where we're at. And I'm really passionate about releasing funds to make these things possible for our children, whether it be SEN or whether it be high performance. It's all possible.
Chris, I'm going to suggest that, and I'm asking a question that I sorely hope I've already figured out the answer to. But you're not offering a service and expecting schools to wait until they get an FNTI before they give you a call.
Oh, absolutely.
No, this is something that any schools that want to look at benchmarking and optimizing.
Absolutely. I will say we work with some high performing schools that one, they want to stay there, and two, they want to build the narrative about how we invest in our children and our staff. And we've got some really great examples and case studies of high performing schools that are using the process to that effect. It isn't just about FNI, deficit budget declaration. It's about staying viable and resourcing well.
Okay, brilliant. So anybody listening in who thinks that sounds like something we need to unpick a bit further, how can people get in touch with you, Chris?
Well, come onto the website, cj-learning.com, go to the contact us, book a demonstration, book a call with us. We can talk through with you. At CJ Learning is our Twitter handle. There are lots of other methods, but they're the easiest ways to get hold of us. But as somebody else said earlier, we're happy to sit down and talk to you, Zoom, Teams, whatever. Just have a conversation with us, because every school is different and every need is specific.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Chris. Good to see you.
Absolute pleasure. Nice to meet you, and great to wish you well.
Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Chris. So important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another great solution service. One thing we always like on our evening shows is the great mix and diversity of different types of products and services that really cover the gamut for schools. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that Chris said, I think it really highlights the need there, because lots of school leaders don't come from a financial background. We see it with education technology. And teachers don't come from a background where they know about infrastructure and Wi-Fi and all these things. And so,
no, absolutely.
And the same is true with finance. Not every teacher did a business and economics degree like I did, or a maths degree, and even maths doesn't set you up in the best way for these sort of things either, does it? So it sounds like a great solution, and kudos to Chris, because I mean, what greater reward can there be than being able to actually have that impact and help turn a school around in that sort of way? So brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Chris. So next up, we have someone who I've not actually met, but I've been tweeting with for quite some time. Really excited to meet her. She's representing a company that we know, both of us, involving someone from right over the other side of the world, Mr. Craig Kemp. But I'm eager to find out more about how she's involved and the professional learning platform, the solution that is the EduSpark solution. So welcome to the Check It Out show. Sammy, how are you doing, Sammy?
It's lovely to meet you at last.
Yeah, finally. I mean, I know you've had a conversation with Al previously, but it's our first proper conversation. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good there. I'm currently teaching. So
you're spinning plates, you're multitasking, aren't you?
Yeah, they're doing independent work at the moment. They've not been left unattended. They are adults as well.
We will try and be focused, but I will just say before we start asking you some questions, a big thank you, Sammy, because you've been a huge support in some of my endeavours previously, in sharing and showcasing, providing feedback, and we'll take it very easily, just take it for granted. But just a big thank you for your support.
Oh, thanks. Lovely. No, I really enjoyed your book, and I did. But yeah, I enjoy a lot of what you do. So thank you for being so generous.
Bless you. Thank you. So listen, EduSpark.
Yeah.
Some people have heard of EduSpark, some won't. So tell us all about it, Sammy, and what you've been doing.
Okay, so EduSpark is a new professional development platform. And it's about picking courses that are right for you. And I think your last person said not every school's the same, and not every teacher's the same. And the things I need to develop and work on might be different to what other teachers in school might need to work and develop on. So EduSpark, you can sign up the whole school, and then people can pick and choose the courses that are right for them. People have written the courses on there, people like me. It says here the best education minds globally. I take that as a huge compliment. I wouldn't have classed myself in that, but there are some epic people on there, some really big names on there as well. It's new, it's refreshing, it's packed full of incredible names from all over the world, and they've worked really hard to represent globally different aspects of the world. And it focuses on literacy, numeracy, well-being is really high up there. The number of courses on well-being is really significant. Diversity, equity, inclusion and justice, leadership, social emotional learning, and so much more. I'm only giving you a little bit here. They're like an all-you-can-eat buffet of high-quality curated learning at an affordable price, and an opportunity for schools to create courses that are personalised for the needs at no additional cost. And I think from my point of view as a creator, that this personalised learning that staff can embark on, it empowers staff. And I think it's a really nice platform.
I tell you what, at 8 o'clock in the evening almost, an all-you-can-eat buffet of anything sounds like particularly personalised learning. That's a great way of describing it.
No, and it sounds like, as we know, when we work with children in the classroom, we have that bell curve of interest, experience, confidence, skills, so forth and so on. And the same is true of adults. People are people after all. So it sounds really fantastic from the offer you described there, Sammy. Tell me, how does EduSpark differ from other solutions? Because obviously there are other solutions out there providing courses for sort of staff, CPD and all this sort of stuff. What singles EduSpark out from their competitors?
What sold it to me, and if you've ever engaged with me on Twitter, you'll know this is my big thing, is it's driven by communities and communities of practice. And so it's not just about ticking a box and you've done the course and well done, you're now certified in this, off you go, you can now teach this because I've said you can. It's about that ongoing support, and it's that transfer of learning into practice. So as creators, we've created spaces where we can interact and chat with each other. So I use dot storming boards, and I'm chatting to someone who I've never met in a country that I don't even know where it is in the world, I've got to be honest, but I'm helping them on their professional learning journey as they're looking at reducing teacher workload in maths. And the point of EduSpark is that it's an evidence-based portfolio. It's not ticks against your name. So over time, it will show your development over time. And the aim of it is to sort of change the way we look at teacher appraisals. And we kind of think that once we've got that certificate or that pass, then that's it, we're done. But actually, as professionals, it should be that constant development of learning. So EduSpark allows that creation of that portfolio and just sort of helps encourage that development and growth a lot more than other platforms, in my opinion.
I was going to, obviously, you've kind of answered the last question, which is about how does it best support and serve your audience. But if you were talking this evening, Sammy, to a school leader that was thinking about why EduSpark would be the right fit for their school or their MAT, what would be the key things that you'd focus on to really kind of convince them as to why it's benefit for them?
I think the main thing for them is the choice that's going to come at them in this all-you-can-eat professional learning buffet. I think that's something that's very unique, but I think that global take on it as well. I think we're very guilty of this in the UK for sure, that we think the issues in our school are the biggest issues that we face, but actually there are issues that can be echoed all around the world, and we learn so much more when we expand our borders. So I think that's what makes it different. The creators like myself, we're in a community too, and we're learning off each other. We've got our own courses on there. So I'm learning from some really lovely people on there as well. And it's like that whole cycle of learning. And I think that's what makes it different. It also solves that problem of where do I find you a course that does this? To those people that are in charge of the CPD budget, or those people that are in charge of getting speakers to come in, or all those things that we know are roles that are really important and need to be filled. It is that place where you've got that wide mix of things to pick as well. And it's not just me in the UK. You've got my good friend Bucky as well, Richard Jerva, and Tablet Academy are on there as well from the UK.
That's a pretty good list. The starter for 10 there on names for that one there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Listen, Sammy, we've got 10 seconds left. Would you like to share where people can find out more about EduSpark and how they can get involved and get in touch?
Yeah, so you can request a personalised one-to-one tour by emailing hello@eduspark.world, but you can just sign up for a free account at eduspark.world, and don't tell anyone, but I've already got one of my own as well as a creator account.
Brilliant.
That's lovely to hear. Thank you so much, and lovely to meet you for the first time, albeit virtually. Hopefully get to meet you IRL at BET in January, perhaps.
I won't be at BET, but yeah.
Okay. It's lovely to meet you, Sammy. Thank you very much for coming on and sharing about EduSpark. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Sammy. Take care.
Cheers. Thanks
guys.
Sammy. Brilliant stuff. Okay, well, look, next up on the Check It Out show, I'm not quite sure who it is, Mr. Kingsley.
Well, after having had Sammy talking all about those great resources for CPD, one of the other things we like, and we have mentioned at the very beginning of the show, is sometimes you can actually gain lots of insights and best practice and ideas by listening into live shows. And it's not a surprise, given that you're now an award-winning, not for the first time, podcaster with your work with Ollie, that you're also involved in another show on a monthly basis, which very creatively is called the EdTech Show.
No, absolutely, Al. Thank you. Yeah. And knowing the first question, so the EdTech Show, it's not a solution per se, but As you know, I've done a variety of shows over the years. If I think about the local context in the UK, start of the pandemic, I did a very similar kind of show actually to Learn Live UE with a UK focus called UK Edu Stories. And, you know, as more and more teachers found and brought themselves, and there's a huge growth and expansion of teachers joining social media and Twitter, and why wouldn't they, to come to an online space and learn from each other. Social media is such a fantastic place to connect and network, but also get ideas which are timely, relevant, and all these different things. And so at that time, lots of people started creating new podcasts, new radio shows, and things like UK Edu Stories and Learn Live UE, using platforms like we use for the Check It Out Show. Now, the Check It Out Show is a great example of how a show can be done differently and done really, really well. But the sorts of shows that I was doing, and Sammy mentioned Bookie a moment ago. So Bookie and I did the UK Edu Stories show. Ollie did, and I did the Learn Live UE show, which we still do. But we changed the format because we found that there were lots and lots of other educators in the space performing a similar function with similar shows. And what we wanted to try and do was to try and sort of really differentiate ourselves from other teachers and educators within the space doing similar things. And so,
sorry, mate, your time's up. That's it now.
No, as I can see, the timer, thank you, Katie, hasn't even started. So I'm cooking with gas here. I'll have to sort out some sort of special thank you for that. No, but seriously, lots and lots of teachers were doing the same kind of sort of chat show, debate, conversation, and sort of webinar kind of format and panel debates and these sorts of things. And whilst they have their space, when I do things, I don't like to do things by halves. I like to sort of go in with 2 feet and try and do something a little bit different, and so forth and so on. So back at the beginning of 2020, somebody I worked with previously at the Jess School in Dubai, Ronan McNichol, and I started a new project called Global EdTech. And as we've sort of created that platform, and I've talked about Global EdTech on the Check It Out show before, so I won't spend too long talking about it now, but it's a platform where we bring together educators from around the world, Global EdTech, given the name, and across the various sort of camps. So you do have sort of EdTech educators sort of really often entrenched in either the Apple camp, the Google camp, or the Microsoft camp. And so the Global EdTech idea came where we were trying to bring all those people together. So rather than people learning in isolation based upon an ecosystem, there's lots more that actually connects those people. And not I mean, we're all like Sammy shared about EduSpark. Teachers are sharing the same issues and having them the world over. So with that in mind and the platform we have available to us, I thought, listen, let's try and think of doing a show in a slightly different format. And I've always thought, why wouldn't it be really cool if the Gadget Show or BBC Click, we had that, on a regular basis, focusing on education technology and the innovations that happen within that space. But it doesn't happen. We sometimes get some education focused stuff. There was a nice thing at on BBC Click at the beginning of the year, looking at artificial intelligence and tools like Sentry, for example. Yeah. I thought, well, let's try and do something which is a bit different. And so the EdTech Show was born. And so what you can expect on the EdTech Show is once a month. There's a show. In fact, there's one this very Thursday. And on each show, we try, myself and my other 3 hosts. We'll only have 3 on the show at any given time. We work in rotation. But Bookie Youssef, who's the co-chair of the EdTech Strategy Group with the Department of Education, she's there. Ollie Lewis, we mentioned before, who I do the other show with on Learn Live UE. Ronan McNichol, my partner in Global EdTech, who's heavily involved. He's works alongside Laura Knight at Berkhamsted School, supporting EdTech across Berkhamsted and their sort of partner schools, and myself. And each show, 3 sort of little edu documentaries. I had a fantastic one with you, for example, recently. And we had another one back along, exploring innovation in the Middle East. If I give you an example of this week's show, we've got 3 segments this week. One segment is exploring XR, which is the sort of, cumulative term for mixed reality, augmented reality, and virtual reality. So there's a 50-minute segment on there exploring that in education. And we've got another segment exploring innovation in the Middle East around the tools that were at the guests event. that we've talked about a few times on the show tonight with Ollie, who was actually at the Guest event and was at the Guest Awards collecting our award and all these things. And in my segment this month is exploring EAL, English as an additional language, and ESOL, being mindful that EAL and ESOL sort of varies in that EAL is for students in school, ESOL is for adult learners, where English is an additional language. And we try and bring on, because the thing is with a lot of these shows, you're lucky to get sort of 4 guests on. You know, I've interviewed 7 people for my segment who are all experts in EAL and ESOL. Ronan's interviewed a whole ton of people around XR, VR, AR, and mixed reality as well. So what we're able to do is really squeeze and concentrate some fantastic voices and fantastic ideas and sharing around how technology can be used in ways to promote, support, and enhance learning. And so that, in a nutshell, which wasn't 5 minutes, I'm sure, that in a nutshell is what the EdTech Show is all about. If you want to find out more, then check out my Twitter at ICT Evangelist. You'll find it promoted there. You can do so as well by looking at global_edtech. And you can visit global-edtech.com, where you'll find all the things to do with what we do through Global EdTech. They're available as well. And if you're an educator watching tonight and you've got an interest, like Sammy does, I know, because I've heard her sharing many times on social media about her love of technology. If you're somebody who wants to share about some work, something that's working for you in your classroom, and you don't really have an outlet for your voice, please again get in touch with myself or Ronan, or through the Global EdTech site, because we're always welcome to take on teacher authors who are looking to share about their practice, because you've heard me say this before, Al, but education is definitely a force for good, and there's far more that unites us than divides us. So please get involved if you'd like to, and if you don't, that's fine. But don't forget to come join us on the EdTech Show monthly on the 3rd or the 4th Thursday of every month.
You kind of get the impression he's quite passionate about this, folks. It wasn't a nutshell. It was more of a coconut shell segment, really, Mr. Anderson. But nonetheless, it's definitely worth checking out. And one of the things we have absolutely seen over the last couple of years is a real growth in lots of places online to develop professional development and just foster connectivity, which is absolutely brilliant. I'm going to move us on because, yet again, we are slightly behind schedule. But hey, if we weren't, we wouldn't have good things to talk about. So we don't mind on these things. So the next guest on the show, a familiar face for many in the EdTech space, being involved in lots of different projects and organisations over the years. So really pleased to have Stuart come and join us from the Wisdom Partnership.
Good evening.
Welcome, Stuart.
How are you today, Stuart?
I'm really good, thank you. And firstly, Al, congratulations on your BCERT role. As you know, I've just stood down. So yeah, good luck.
Well, I hope it wasn't because of me. No, I'm joking.
I did my time. I did my 9 years as on the Executive Council and 4 years as Treasurer, which is all you can do.
You've done a pretty good stint there, sir. Well done to you.
Yeah, it's an important organisation doing a lot of good work.
Absolutely. So listen, Stuart, the Wisdom Partnership. Tell everybody listening what it's all about, what services you offer.
So we offer consultancy and it's kind of commercial consultancy for people providing services to the education sector. Mainly EdTech, but it doesn't have to be based on technology. So many times, and Chris Jones said it earlier, we teachers come to us with a great idea, but don't have the commercial experience of how to take it to market. So we work with everything from startups to scale-ups to larger organizations. And we provide a whole range of services. So there's 3 of us who kind of run the organization, but we also have a large number of other consultants with different specialisms we can call on. And it's everything from kind of leadership to management to strategy to finance to marketing, project planning. We have technicians who are really tech savvy, particularly in the SaaS world. And we can help in all of these, and right up to M&A. Full merger and acquisitions and organizations that are looking for investment.
I think it's very good timing, really, given the explosion and growth in EdTech, and certainly something that I'm often approached about is people with great ideas who want to take that idea and transform it into something real, or want to recognise and find the right people to get in touch with in terms of how to take and scale their business. So exactly up your street by the sounds of it, Stuart.
Yeah, and so many times people approach us, and I'm sure you've heard it, many others have as well. Teacher comes up with an idea, they think it's a brilliant idea, they invest their life savings in it, and they come to us and we go, I'm not sure. And I think one of the uniquenesses we have is we're honest. We've been in this education sector for a long time. And you kind of get a feeling for something that if it's not going to, it might be brilliant, and the school that's using it might be amazing, but it doesn't mean other schools will get value out of it. And we hear that so many times. And often it's got to say, look, don't waste any more money. Or seek other opinion elsewhere. We will gladly give an opinion. And all too often we've had to say, we don't say it in such a blunt way, but sometimes your baby is ugly.
Well, sometimes you need someone who's one step or two steps removed to have that sanity check to make sure that something actually does translate from one setting to a broader commercial. And as I'm sure you've come across, like myself, some of the the best products never get seen by customers because they don't have the right backing to actually promote and market and sell them. And sometimes some of the worst products, like you say, a lot of money can be spent on something that's never destined to be successful. So.
Absolutely. And people who come up with these ideas, as most of your contributors tonight have been come from the education background. We come from the commercial background in education for between us 200 odd years of experience, and we've built companies from nothing to large organizations that go through the whole investment, that they get acquired, and that can often change the culture. But we've kind of been there, done that, and we want to provide the level of service that organizations need. It's the expertise that you can't afford. As you are growing your business, the biggest decision you have to make is who's the first person you're going to employ, and that becomes dangerous. And you go through these kind of choppy waters, and we can help you navigate those.
And can I just ask you, from your business model and the services and support that you offer, and probably support's a better term to use in many regards, is it any size business, from an individual who's got an idea and they want to take it to market? Do you focus on a particular segment?
No. I mean, we've got a couple of charities we represent. They've got some great products for the school sector. But no, literally, we have a number of clients ranging from a one-man band just starting up with an idea who needs to develop that into a product and then take that to market. You can't do that quickly, but you can't do it too slowly either. To huge global organizations, some of them would like to bring products to the UK. And again, I'm sure we've all been there. Go, hey, look, it works really great in the country it's based in. Doesn't mean it's going to get any traction here without some changes. And then you look at all the competition. You go, is there really room for another product that does this? There's always room for innovation.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Listen, thank you very much. I'm mindful of the time here, Stuart. If people want to find, firstly, was there anything else you wanted to share about the Wisdom Partnership before we move on to sort of find out how to get in touch with you and things?
I think the only thing is, one of our uniquenesses is that we don't commit organisations to a long time. We're not mega expensive, and you don't have to sign up for tens of thousands of pounds. We little chunks of work. So you come to us just for, what's your marketing strategy? We'll help you with that. Or what's your sales strategy? Or any individual piece of work, right through to a whole, can you do this? Can you build it? Can you take it to market? And then can you run it for me?
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you so much. And I mean, I get asked very similar questions myself. Lots of educators trying to be innovative and trying things out and stuff. So I'll be definitely passing your details over to them. It sounds like a fantastic opportunity there, Stuart. Where can people find out more about how to get in touch?
thewisdompartnership.com. Spelt out in full as it's kind of scrolling across your screen.
Brilliant stuff. And then you've got TWP Hello on the
Wisdom Partnership is a bit of a mouthful, so we just abbreviated TWP.
Brilliant stuff. And I've got no problem in now from the strength you've given me from your pitch there, Al. Your bum does look big in that, I'm sorry to say.
Well, there's a time where honesty is appropriate and a time when there isn't. So thank you.
That's rude, but
that's all right. Yeah, thank you very much, Stuart. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing.
Good to see you, sir.
Thank you for inviting me.
Take care.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Stuart. Thanks.
Well, we are heading into the home straight, Mr. Anderson.
Absolutely. So next up, we have someone from an organisation I've known for a very long time. So I'm really excited to learn about the latest innovations at Aspira. So welcome to Craig Maloney joining us. And I'm going to say Borida, and I'm hoping I've got the right.
No, not Borida.
No.
Prouda.
Yeah, I'll call it. See, look.
Good
Sorry.
evening.
I tried and I failed. I would say Ben beginning, but that's probably wrong as well, Steve. I'm trying.
That's all right. That's all right. How are you
Welcome,
both
Craig.
anyway?
We are good, thank you. Lovely to have you come and join the show. As hopefully you've heard, we've had a really good mix of solutions and services this evening, and I'm sure you are going to round off the show for us in similar fashion, hopefully.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, and just to start off with, thanks for having me on, and obviously having us on to talk about our solution as well. So, brilliant.
You're very, very welcome. Very, very welcome. So, could you tell us about your solution, please?
Yeah. Well, I'm here to talk about one of our products called Aspire Ed, which is an online professional development platform focused on digital upskilling for all education organisations. It's developed by an award-winning learning technology company, Aspire2B, who I work for, and it provides practitioners with contextualised digital upskilling to enhance teaching and learning using technology. As the only UK professional development partner for Apple, Microsoft and Google, Aspire2B is uniquely placed to provide this wide breadth of focused digital training. And we really focus this on this product, which is Aspire Ed, our online professional development platform.
Thank you. Obviously, you've highlighted one of the differences, which is that kind of unique facet of being linked to all those different platforms.
Yes.
But if somebody asked you, Craig, what's the key differentiator apart from the fact of that breadth there? How would you differentiate what you offer and its focus?
Yeah, like you said, we're quite fortunate to be a partner of the three major sort of players there. But our unique selling point is definitely all courses are developed by educators for educators. And Aspire Ed offers schools, local authorities, academy trusts a cost-effective solution to developing digital competency and application of technology in the classroom. With that unique selling point being that all courses are developed by educators for educators. Throughout each course, we either provide learning via a teacher toolkit course, where we focus on providing all the information for an effective, how to use an effective app during your day-to-day working, or via a blended learning approach where we demonstrate and teach you how to use a tool or app effectively, but also provide you with the lesson ideas and resources to take directly back into your classroom and use in your lessons. So they're the two sort of approaches that we take to our courses that sit on Aspire Ed. But we definitely go back to our unique selling point that all our courses are developed by educators for educators. We have a number of learning technologists that work in the company, and they all come from an education background, having been past teachers, members of SLT across the primary and secondary school in education. We also have a head teacher amongst us as well. So we have that sort of education background that we really focus our courses on, trying to give the teachers that little bit extra from a teacher to a teacher, really.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's been Simon's sort of vision from the start when he first started Aspire2B, as a former head teacher himself. I heard you mention there the phrase digital competence, and obviously DCF's huge in Wales, and massive success story at Swansea with Aspire2B as well, Craig. Can you share, and I mean, we get guests from around the world, can you sort of share some confidence about how the Aspire Ed product would not be suitable just for schools that are in Wales, thinking about the DCF and all those sort of things, because obviously, particularly highlighted in the pandemic, being able to be trained and thinking about teaching and learning with technology is important for all of us. How has Aspire2B made sure that it's expansive beyond what the setting is in Wales?
Well, we obviously work across the world with different schools, so we don't just focus on schools in Wales. We work in Jersey, Guernsey, a lot of schools in England, Scotland, etc. So all our courses aren't just based on the DCF or schools in Wales. We obviously are trying to open it up to worldwide, really, our biggest thing really is, it's really affordable schools can subscribe onto Aspire Ed for as little as £1.50 per member of staff each month, which is cheaper than getting a takeaway coffee or a Big Mac, etc. And schools subscriptions can start from around £540 for the 12 months, depending on what number of staff you are, and then obviously it increases from there. But I will always go back to what we tried to achieve with Aspire Ed. We were lucky enough really to start Aspire Ed or have it in the wings before the pandemic, and we were going to launch April before the pandemic hit, but we pushed it forward to launch it in March. And we were in a real good place to get it going, and it really supported a lot of educators out there during the start of the pandemic, really. So we were really beneficial that it kicked off then, and we were able to support educators during that time of uncertainty right at the beginning by giving free courses, etc. And we really built our fan base or our users during that period, and it's kicked on since then, really.
It's great to hear, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, I mean, it's lovely to hear, but also, perfect timing in terms of that resource and capacity available whilst schools have been having to fast track adoption. So many listening in might think, well, we fancy a bit of that capacity and resource as well. So if people want to get in touch with you, Craig, where's the best way to go about it?
Yeah, well, the website is aspireed.online. And on there, there's obviously a contact us form. There's also a sort of slider scale where you can get a price for the amount of educators or amount of staff you have in your school, and it'll give you a quote, and obviously it'll provide us with your information through that as well. Or you can contact us on social media at Aspire to Be across our social media channels. But yeah, go to the website, which is aspireed.online, and that will provide you with a lot more information on there.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Craig. And I do a shout out for the likes of Simon and Ryan Evans, for example. Lovely to see the sharing going on from the likes of yourselves beyond the main Aspire to Be account. We're getting involved and engaging and sharing and supporting people, outside of work and all that sort of stuff as well. Really great to see that across the board from your colleagues, Craig. So just a big thanks to all of you for all that you do, sharing and supporting teachers beyond sort of the day job and everything as well.
Great. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for that. And thanks for having us on once again. Cheers. And not with that.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night, mate.
Now, I'm going to say the good news, but it's not really good news because we always have fun doing this show. But one of our guests this evening, Sparks, unfortunately, last minute, aren't able to join us this evening. So we have the luxury of a slightly earlier finish. But I thought one thing we could just touch on before we wrap up is just a bit of a headline of what we've got planned and what's coming up. In particular, seeing as we kicked off the show with our travels, where we're going to be travelling to straight after Christmas. As soon as Rudolph and his gang have passed over our houses and chimney tops, we will calm down and begin the planning in earnest, although in truth we've been planning for about 6 months, for our next adventure to the London Excel. And of course, for all of you involved in education, I'm sure you'll immediately know that we're talking about BET. And for us, BET is a much bigger event than normal because it's not just about turning up and showcasing some solutions. But for all of us, I think now it's really a focus about a great chance to catch up, meet up with familiar faces from in some cases from many years ago. There's going to be lots of access to CPD and resources. We are absolutely, Mark and I are going to be embracing the sharing, not only on NetSupport Radio, but I think we're going to do a bit of walking around as well, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the reasons why we're trialing out these little microphones on here this evening is because the Check It Out show, we're hoping we're better sort of do that live from the show floor from BET. And I mean, just to jump in as well, I was definitely one, like I was saying before, some of this sort of hide the light under the bushel. NetSupport are the official broadcasters at BET with NetSupport Radio. So if you're unable to make it for whatever reason, then please do not only check it out on the Check It Out show, but get yourself onto your favourite podcasting tool and search for NetSupport Radio. We're able to get a daily digest from the fantastic Mr. One and Only Russell, the living legend radio DJ Pro. I think that's his official title.
That seems to be the abridged version. We could go on with a few more expletives in there and phrases, but yes, it's fantastic to have Russell with us again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, somebody who's inspired me for as long as I can remember, to be honest. So really great to have Russell working with us on NetSupport Radio. But yeah, we're hoping to do Check It Out Show live from the floor. We'll record the actual session to then bundle it together to make the show. Absolutely. I suspect, given how Wi-Fi can work sometimes at BET. But
we mustn't get too far ahead of ourselves, because we're still going to have time for a December Check It Out show, a Christmas Check It Out show.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not only will we hopefully have, and as if by magic, one of our elves has just appeared on the screen, 14th of December. That's to give us a little bit of time just to start wrapping gifts and presents before the Christmas break. But we're obviously going to be showcasing some highlights about what we're going to be doing at BET, but also got a great mix of guests coming on the show, many who you'll be able to meet and catch up with face-to-face at BET, which is always really nice. And we'll also be talking to you a little bit, hopefully, about the next edition of our Rise magazine, which will also be providing some really handy resources in advance of BET. And not only that, actually, Mark, there's also going to be some really handy resources for all sorts to read over Christmas or to share with their families as well.
Yeah. So
don't say too much, though. We've got to keep it
I won't. But I can't. I'm so excited. I'm like a horse, a pedigree horse at the Grand National, ready to start the race out. Can I please share about the?
You could give a little tease, I'm sure.
Well, if you remember, back a few years ago, based upon some work I did years ago in a school that I was in, I wrote this little book called 50 Things to Do This Summer. And of course, I'm going to give nothing away in what I've shared there about what might be being released around about the Christmas time, which would be really useful for families and communities around the winter break. And hopefully you'll recognise that I'm saying the winter break because not everyone celebrates Christmas. And so the resource is going to have lots of ideas to keep young people's minds active, engaged, energised on a shoestring, a bit like Tony's Cyber on a shoestring, educating data hub activity there. So really looking forward to be able to share more about that on the next show as well, and be able to share that resource out to the wider community as well. So really excited about that.
Truth is, we've got loads of great speakers and resources coming on NetSupport Radio. We've got loads of great people coming to meet us at BET on the NetSupport stand, and also with Mark and I on Walkabout. We've got a great new edition of our magazine. And if you get bored of all of those resources, as you found out this evening, you can go to the EdTech Show, you can go to Learn Live UAE, you can find Mark and other great resources and speakers in all sorts of different places. So what a great time to be involved in the sharing in our education space.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget as well, our former guest this evening, early guest this evening, Dan Fitzpatrick. Other people do shows other than myself and Al. So EduFuturists, please check out their work as well.
Definitely.
Some of the guests they have on there as well, Al, it's just brilliant as well. Like Josh Dan, for example, is so inspiring, setting our school up with SpaceX and things. Please do check them out. And if, like we share most shows, if you've been inspired by something that you've seen on the show this evening, if you've gone away and checked out Wendy's My Mood Stars or some of the Hattie books or whatever it is you've sort of thought was really resonating for you this evening, then please let us know. It's lovely to hear back from you, get some feedback about what you found really useful. And if you've gone away and tried it in your school and got it in your school, let's say you've got in Learning Ladders and it's transformed things for you, you've attended Cyber on a shoestring, whatever it is, let us know, because we love to hear from you. So thank you to those people who commented on the show this evening. And from the outset, we were joined by Simon Blower from Pobble, who was actually with us as a guest on the stand at BET as well. So really looking forward to having him join us. But thank you for saying hello at the top end of the show there, Simon, and looking forward to seeing you in the new year too.
Last thank you is to Chief Elf, who makes this show happen behind the scenes. So a big thank you to Katie, who's pushing all the right buttons and making sure that we look like we've got some sense of idea about what we're talking about. So as always, a big thank you to Katie and the team for supporting the event. Thank you to all of you for listening in. Please do share if you care. And we will see you in December for the next edition of the Check It Out Show. And it's good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
Damn it.
Good night.